Japan continued to look invincible. Indonesia take down one of Asia's giants, and my word is Group C. Incomplete and utter chaos. Welcome to Deadball TV, and welcome to my AFC November World Cup qualifying recap. You guys can find Groups A and B out now on the channel if you're interested in those. We also did a Takeaways collab with Michael Talks Football. You can also find that in our AFC playlist on the channel, and literally anything else that you could possibly want to consume regarding Asian football. And we're going to continue to drop videos like this, group summaries, predictions, live streams, analysis, all that good stuff until the 2026 World Cup. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you hit subscribe, drop a like on the video, and let me know your biggest takeaway from Group C specifically down below in the comments. We'll start with Japan, who beat Indonesia 4-0 in Jakarta to start the window, and I need somebody in the comments to let me know the last time that Indonesia allowed 4 goals at home. I didn't have the time to go find this stat myself, but I'm willing to bet it was at least 8 years ago. I'm gonna say that, maybe like a big boy Australia or some invitee came to Indonesia and won by that much, but I digress. Point is, it was a pretty comprehensive win for Japan. Now, I only had one major takeaway during this game, and that is Ko Itakura in the back for Japan continues to be a massive concern for me. Like, if I look at the biggest weaknesses from this team, it's the center back position, and it's kind of specifically him, and I'm wondering more and more as time goes on if Takehiro Tomiyasu is going to be the final piece, the final infinity stone to unlock Japan's greatness and, dare I say, even make a semifinal at the World Cup, because there were a couple situations in this Indonesia match where Itakura was completely beaten for pace or completely misread an aerial ball, and Ragnar was through on goal, and if Zion Suzuki didn't bail him out, there was a genuine instance in this game where Indonesia could have been up 1-0, and I think there was a second one as well where Itakura really struggled in this game. He's the weakest link in the Japanese national team by far. On the flip side, on the positive, I think Japan really flexed their attacking flexibility in this game. The unique ability to do something that really no other team in Asia is able to do, and that's attack through the middle and attack at an extremely lethal rate. We have seen Indonesia time and time again lock up anything happening outside. They've been very good at shutting down opportunities coming out wide, and Japan is able to attack through the middle. They're able to take their time. They don't rush anything. I think in chances created, I think they're outside the top 5 in Asia. They might be 5th overall. This is the Samurai Blue, who scored 22 goals, are 5th in Asia. But what makes them so deadly is a 37% chance conversion rate, which is the best in all of Asia. And I just want to say, for a team that for so long, the dialogue has been, they don't have a striker. They're not clinical. I mean, literally Blue Lock, bro. The premise to Blue Lock is we have to develop a 9 for the Japanese national team so that we can win the World Cup. That's the entire anime, basically, right there. And it didn't start from nothing. There's a reason for Blue Lock. And yet, despite that, despite an insane rotation, every single game, I mean, Moriyasu makes minimum 2 changes per game. These guys keep scoring, and they keep dominating and controlling over and over and over again. It's honestly, in the attack, it's becoming like pick your poison for Japan. It could be Doan, it could be Ito, it could be Kubo, it could be Mitoma, it could be Maeda. It doesn't matter. They're still getting it done at an insane clip, and I don't really know who can stop them. In the 3-1 win against China, it was a much scrappier game. I thought China came out, and they were like, okay, we got ran off the pitch 7-0 this time. We cannot allow that to happen again, especially in our home stadium. We're going to foul these boys. And they did, and they made it ugly, and I don't think Japan really had that many chances. I think they created 8 total in the game, which is tied for their second lowest. So China really made it difficult for the Japanese national team in this game, but at the end of the day, the absolute class of this national team came through. And in the China game, winning 3-1 was the first goal conceded by Japan that was not an own goal. Obviously, the Shogo Taniguchi was an own goal against Australia, so pretty crazy. We're 6 games in, and Japan have allowed the other team to score a single time. I think Zion Suzuki's save percentage is up to 78%. I believe that's 4th amongst all eligible goalkeepers right now. It's pretty insane. He's only made 7 saves through 6 games. They've been some big saves. One-on-one with Ragnar, great save against Saudi Arabia. He's done his job, but that just shows you how elite Japan are offensively. They're matching that defensively right now. It's incredible how these guys are performing. They're the best team in Asia, and honestly, I think they created some separation from Iran and South Korea during this break. Let's move on to Saudi Arabia, and the biggest question for these guys now is, will they qualify for the World Cup? Hervé Renard came back. You know, he brought back the slick white button down. He looked great on the sideline against both Australia and Indonesia, but the tactics, they look outdated. They look like they need a complete revamp. He's already looking like, was this the right reappointment? I'm not saying it was a mistake to bring back Renard, but those 2 performances from from this window, you have Saud Abdulhamid, who's one of the only Saudi players putting any respect on the badge. Him and Al-Tambakti, and maybe Al-Qassar, the goalkeeper, some of the few players who have any pride left in this national team. I think that's the biggest problem with these guys now, is just a disgusting lack of drive. And I don't know what that is from. Is it from the insane salaries in the Saudi Pro League? Is it from the fact that in the Asian Champions League, they're just used to winning? So in the club level, there's been so much success that it's making them fat and complacent in the national team sphere? I don't know. I would love to hear from any Saudi fans watching, because these players, some of them are better than this. Some are dead, should be nowhere near the Saudi national team anymore. But some of these guys are genuinely better players than what they've been showing. And now it's up to Renard in limited time to turn these guys around. I mean, I'm thinking offensively, y'all, what was the highlight? An offsides goal against Australia late? That's the scariest thing you produced? Even Martin Pies, he wasn't extremely bothered. I think of how Australia played in Jakarta versus Saudi Arabia. Irakunda hit the post, and there was a couple narrow misses from Australia. I would say Indonesia were fortunate in that game. Indonesia were not fortunate in this game. Indonesia murdered this Saudi Arabian team. This back line was all over the place, and it could have been an embarrassing 3-0, 4-0, something like that. So for Renard to walk in and he gets 1 point from this window, I mean, Mancini could have done that. Like, I'm a Renard fan, but don't tell me Mancini wasn't getting you a draw from these games. Absolutely insane here. And I would love to know from any Saudi fans if losing 2-0 to Indonesia is one of the most embarrassing results that you can remember, because I can't really remember a more embarrassing result for Saudi Arabia. I'm sure they got bodied in a friendly against some European team 4-0, or I'm sure they have bad losses. This is a World Cup qualifier, bro. You weren't just having a little friendly against England for no reason. You need to go to the World Cup. This was a must-win game, and you got your ass kicked. You didn't lose, you got demolished. On the bright side for Saudi Arabia, I think the Gulf Cup coming up is actually going to be an advantage for them. I want to end on somewhat of a positive for Saudi Arabia. This is going to give Renard the opportunity for minimum, 3 more games? I think it's groups of 4 to figure it out. And I think that's going to be vital. I think if any teams are going to benefit, it's going to be Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Need this kind of mini tournament to turn their fortunes around. I mean, Indonesia will be in the AFF as well, but they're overperforming right now. Saudi Arabia are the most underperforming team in Asia. I know some people will say, no, it's Qatar. They're the most underperforming because they're Asian Cup champions. I think it's Saudi Arabia, given the performances as well, are the most underperforming side. So Renard is given a little bit of a get out of jail. Maybe not a get out of jail, but he's given, you get 1 phone call in jail. Renard's getting at least 3 phone calls in jail. So if he calls the governor can't get him out, then you call the prime minister, then you call the general, and you just overthrow the government via military coup. But the point is, he needs to take advantage of this opportunity. There's a decent amount of young talent that Saudi Arabia might be able to tap into, and it might be able to turn around the fortunes of this team. Do not waste this opportunity in the Gulf Cup. Go out there to win the whole thing, because this team, they need all the morale boost they can get. They look absolutely finished right now. I mean, even some of their best players, Mohamed Kano, did almost nothing against Indonesia. It was kind of disturbing. My one piece of offensive advice for Hervé Renard, who I'm sure is watching this video, please drop a like and subscribe, is I would start playing without a striker immediately, because Al-Burakan is trash, Sherry is trash, and Radif is so mid that there's probably no advantage outside of a little bit of pace to play him. I would play with a false 9 and try to get something going through the middle right now, because everything is wide. They become the most predictable offense in AFC, and they have the worst offense in the AFC with 3 goals through 6 matches. It is the definition of dead. It is the definition of panic mode. It is the definition of peak right now for Saudi Arabia. Next, let's talk about the Socceroos, who are in a fierce battle right now with Bahrain to be the worst watch of any team in AFC. Australia has become astronomically boring to the point where, I don't know, if you had a long day at work and you consumed a lot of caffeine and you're laying in bed and you're counting sheep and you're trying every single technique to go to bed, what I would recommend is you open your laptop, pull up the AFC YouTube channel, and just watch Australia. Pick any game, because they've all been terrible. The offense has not gotten better at all from match day 1 to match day 6. And I think part of that is definitely talent, and the other bit it has got to be tactics. And the fact that Australia are always expected to be the bigger team, they have to have the ball, and they simply don't have the personnel of even Saudi Arabia to like really break down teams. They're just not very good at that. And their set pieces have kind of failed them. Wasn't there a scene in Star Wars where like somebody can't use the Force anymore and they can't pick up their lightsaber? I feel like that is what is happening now to Australia. It's like their set pieces have abandoned them. Popovich came in, replaced Graham Arnold. It was a bit of a confusing appointment, but I think there was some optimism. And I think he's introduced Garia in the back line, who's been a stud. And he's brought in Gauchi as some direct competition with Matt Ryan. And outside of that, he has literally played musical effing chairs with the lineup. I mean, I'm looking at who was playing against Bahrain. Hayden Matthews, 20-year-old CB. Who the hell is that? Somebody tell me why Anthony Caceres is getting starting minutes next to Jackson Irvine now in the midfield? Really? Are those the experiments we need to be running right now? We got Jordan Boss starting one game, then he's on the bench the next. We got Miller in sometimes. We got Bayhitch in sometimes. There's no consistency outside Harry Sutar and Cameron Burgess. And Burgess is having, I would say, a nightmare of a qualifying campaign. He's got an own goal and then pretty much gifted Bahrain a goal in the 2-2 draw. I mean, it is peak right now for these guys. Their front three against Bahrain was Yangi, Craig Goodwin, and Riley effing McGree. I'm trying to not be super harsh, right? Because I don't think Australia have an insane amount of talent, but these guys have just become so boring to watch. The 0-0 against Saudi Arabia, the same result they got in 2022. I will say the Socceroos were the better team. I think it's Riley McGree should have scored one-on-one late. Saud Abdulhamid game-saving tackle there. And I think Australia had the better chances overall. But they're really struggling with their overall chance creation, and they're really struggling to capitalize and convert on those chances. That compounded with the fact that they are the team that's expected to control the flow has them really, really struggling right now. Defensively, they're still strong. But offensively, I mean, 6 goals in 6 games. They've only allowed 5. But I don't really know what to say, man. Popovich has got to figure out the offense. Now, how I predict this ending at the end of the day is Australia just being athletic, just being tough, just being from the outback. They're going to find a way to finish second on the very last match day by getting a draw away in Riyadh or something like that. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that's how the campaign ends, but I don't have any other notes for these guys. Insane rotation, can't score, defensively pretty strong, but they're making mistakes. I don't know how we fix this. I would like to see a little bit more consistency with the lineup and maybe actually include Irakunda in your call-up. That would be my advice. Let's move on to China, the most insane team in round 3, the only other team in Group C with more than one win besides China, and they're in dead last right now. I thought it was a masterclass beating Bahrain away from home thanks to some VAR drama and a Yuning Zhang glow-up that I never forecasted in my wildest dreams. I literally said this guy was the worst striker in Asia, and then he scored in back-to-back games and is now looking quite legit. So I guess I'm a fool. I don't know. You guys choose to watch this content. I can't get them all right. What's changed for China? I think the biggest thing for them is defensively. They look way better from open play, and they have become a much more physical side. Away in Rifa, they didn't really get Bahrain much. I mean, Bahrain's disallowed goal at the end was one of their few really good chances they made in 90 minutes. I don't know. They're just doing a better job marking. I remember when they lost 7-0 to Japan versus the 3-1. Japan was getting everything they wanted. Every time Mitoma wanted to dribble, beat his man. In this game, if the Chinese defender was beaten, jersey tug, hard tackle, take him out at the knees, go for his ankle. That's what China needs to do. They're making the games uglier. No more free samples of Chinese Szechuan food. We're closing the supermarket, okay? You got to pay for that now. My biggest concern for China, and the reason that I'm still concerned about their chances for round 4. By the way, let me know in the comments. Are China making round 4? I think finishing second, ludicrous. They'll lose too many games. But will they finish in a position to go to round 4? Let me know in the comments. The biggest weakness for these guys is defending set pieces. I think we saw 2 more set pieces conceded against Japan. Obviously, there was, 2 set pieces conceded against Saudi Arabia and 1 against Australia. They're just giving these goals away. I think if China was in Group B, I don't think this would be that much of an issue. But if you can't defend set pieces in a group with Japan, Australia, Indonesia, and Saudi Arabia, you're in big trouble. And so that's going to be the Achilles heel for this team. I wouldn't be surprised if they go away to Riyadh next game, lock it down for 86 minutes, and then concede to a Lajami header or something. Like, you just can't be conceding that many set pieces. If you remove the set pieces, I think they've conceded 11 in 6 games, which is way more respectable than 16 currently. So that's what Ivankovic needs to fix. And I'm curious when Moulay comes back how he's going to complement this team, because I don't know if I'd be messing with too much stuff right now. I think this is about as good as China are going to be. A couple young guys in the back line, being very clinical right now, World Cup qualifying, converting on 14% of their shots, which is second best in Group Group C and 4th best in all of Asia. China have the 4th best conversion rate. Let's move on to Indonesia. Picking up what can only be described as, I think, their greatest win in history. You could probably have a debate. I'm sure there's an Indonesian historian who's going to disagree with me and say that they did something in 1970. I think both the fact that it was a 2-0 scoreline, the fact that it was against Saudi Arabia, and the fact that the performance justified even a 3-0 or 4-0, for me, that's why it's their best win. I've been saying in every single video I've ever done about Indonesia, beating Vietnam's cute. Beating the Philippines is cute. Getting a draw against a finished Saudi Arabia with a missed penalty is cute. But you gotta beat somebody. And they finally did. Now, the question is, are Indonesia actually legit, or are their tactics the perfect counter, no pun intended, to everything that Saudi Arabia and Renard do? Because Renard plays a high line and Saudi Arabia played a high line, and they got cooked by Marcelino and Ragnar in Struik the entire effing game. And I thought it was incredibly stubborn from Renard to not change his tactics there. And it was genius from Shin Tae-yong. And I gotta say very quickly, there were some whispers about if Shin Tae-yong didn't get some wins here, that they were gonna dismiss him. That has got to be the most asinine thing I've ever heard. This man has overseen the revolution of this team. He's the George Washington of Indonesian football. You cannot seriously consider getting rid of him, even if Indonesia finished 5th. At least not in my opinion. We had plenty of people on Deadball TV that said Indonesia were going to take like 16 points from this group. So I'm sure those people want Shin Tae-yong sacked, but to me that's ludicrous. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I think I said in the first video, I need to go check myself, if Indonesia got 6 to 8 points, I said massive W of the campaign. The benchmark for me, for Indonesia, for success, absolute success, I would go 7. I would go 7, like, lifetime contract Shin Tae-yong. Well, they have 6 right now. 1 win, 3 draws. So even if they lose every other game in qualifying, they still have Bahrain at home, which is going to be a cracking game just because of the vibes. Football's going to suck because it's Bahrain. But in terms of the drama, it's going to be so juicy. And they got China left, and they got Japan away. So they have like 2 hard games, Australia away, Japan away, and 2, you want to go to the World Cup? Win them. You got to win at least 1 against Bahrain and China. Those are going to be fascinating. I think it's mission accomplished already for Indonesia. If they go to round 4 and lose, aren't they supposed to? Half these guys don't even know each other's names. They're still recruiting more players. Some of the players they've recruited have now been replaced by other recruits. It's insane. Absolutely massive dub to Indonesia. In the game against Japan, I'll just say very briefly, they came up against the best team in Asia. And Japan has the unique ability to attack through the middle, which Indonesia hasn't really had to deal with in this group. I would be fascinated to see how Indonesia would play in Group B, because a lot of those teams play through the middle more, much more so than Group C. I'd be fascinated in another universe to see how Indonesia's defense is holding up there. I thought it was pretty poor against Japan. And I'm not faulting Indonesia for that. They're not supposed to beat Japan. But still, that would just be a fascinating. If we could roll the dice again and reshuffle the groups, what would that look like? Lastly, I'll end with Bahrain, who might have the award for the biggest fumble in AFC. Let me know down below in the comments. I say that because they had a late winner against China, chalked off for VAR. And then they somehow are gifted a 2-1 lead against Australia. They really just have to defend for 10 minutes, 14 minutes, something like that. And they can't even do that, bro. The defense sucks for this team. The offense is just Al Aswad and Marhoun trying to find 1 good cross per game. I'll give Bahrain credit. They do convert those pretty well. And just ugly, ugly football. Like, there was a brief moment here where Bahrain was walking out of here with 6 points. And now they walk out with 1. They're in 5th right now because everybody in this group is just mid as hell. They could have been on 11 points. They could be in 2nd. Firmly. Vice grip, get a draw in Jakarta, you're at the World Cup in 2nd. And they fumbled it. Which is kind of poetic justice, because I think they've been a stain on qualifying so far. I'm being very harsh, but like, F it. I don't care. Like, Bahrain ain't paying me to say anything nice about them. This team is ass. And I'm tired of watching them. And I think they got so lucky against Australia in the first leg. Kind of hung on for dear life at home against Indonesia. They've been fortunate in this window. Maybe they got unfortunate finally. And I think all in the universe is corrected and they're in 5th where they kind of rightfully belong. The only thing about Bahrain that's guaranteed is goalkeeping errors, own goals, and minimum 12 minutes of extra time added. If that's what you want, if you want to see a calamity, Bahrain every time. Something is going to happen in the game with these guys. That's the only thing that I would say has entertainment value with these guys. Now, interesting, the AFC Mafia or AFC Mob shouts completely disappeared when Australia equalized late against Bahrain, but I thought that the Arabs bought every everything, including all of AFC. Interesting, I must have gotten that wrong, but I didn't see any AFC Mafia after Bahrain allowed the equalizer from Australia. And I'm going to end the video there, guys. Those are my thoughts on Group C on the November window, how Group C is looking, my kind of takeaways, strengths and weaknesses of all teams involved. If there's something I said that you agree with or disagree with, let me know down below in the comments. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed. And another reminder to hit subscribe for the insane amount of AFC content dropping here on Deadball TV, the best place on YouTube for AFC content. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.